Well, hello everyone. This is Logan589XP here on another episode of the Nin-Cast, and today I want to talk about some next generation stuff. Well, kinda. I'm actually going to be doing a bigger, more in-depth video on, PlayStation 5, Series X, the comparisons, what's their strategy going into the launch period and whatnot. We'll talk about that later on after Microsoft has their big Series X blowout event, because I want to wait on that because of course we're going to get a lot more information on upcoming games and most likely the very console we are here to talk about today. And what is that? Well, I'm sure you can tell from the thumbnail, but today I want to talk about Microsoft's strategy with Xbox Series X, or as it is officially known as of right now, Project Lockhart, or Xbox Lockhart, or just Lockhart, with Scarlet being the code name for Xbox Series X, in the similar vein to how Scorpio is the code name for the Xbox One X. And while there is no official name for Project Lockhart yet, as it has not been officially announced, but heavily rumored and has basically been confirmed because it's in like the SDK for DirectX and stuff like that. People have been talking about that recently. So Project Lockhart, it's happening. It's happening. Any doubt of this console not happening is out the window. It's going to happen. If it doesn't happen at launch, it'll happen after launch. It's gonna happen. But anyways, yes, Xbox Series S has been the name that most people have assigned to it because, hey, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, so therefore Xbox Series X, that must mean that the lower end SKU is the Xbox Series S. Plus, Microsoft has already talked about how the whole branding of, oh, it's just Xbox this generation because we want to have multiple models. Even though, let's be real here, the actual brand name is Xbox Series. They've kind of backed away from the whole it's just Xbox thing a bit because they've been so heavy on the Xbox Series X, and that's clearly the flagship, the main console. But let's be real here, even if the S, and maybe there's even more than the S. Maybe a couple of years from now we'll get an Xbox Series L or an Xbox Series M or whatever, letter they want to assign to it. Point is, whether they want to still call it the fourth generation is just Xbox or not, the fact remains, even if the Series S never came out, it doesn't matter if it comes out or not. The console generation is Xbox Series. We had the original Xbox, or just Xbox. Then we had Xbox 360. Then we had Xbox One. Now we have Xbox Series. Woo! So complicated. Now, is the name great? Not really, but you know what? It is what it is at this point, and that's not really a big concern. Because I know people are still talking about, oh man, that there's going to be like that kid at Christmas who, with the confused parents that don't know anything, they're going to buy an Xbox One X when he really wanted an Xbox Series X and all that stuff. And I'm sure that's going to happen. And honestly, I feel really bad for the kids who are going to be opening up their Xbox on Christmas this year. And they're going to be like, wait, why is this an Xbox One X? I want an Xbox Series X. Or the other way around, where if the Series S comes at launch, I want an Xbox Series S, not an Xbox One S. It also is not going to help that, it's like, oh, Xbox One X is like black/gray, and then the Series X is black/gray, and then, the Series S is probably going to be white because it just kind of makes sense for it to be. And then, the One S is mainly white. So, like, I already know that's going to happen. Microsoft can't really do anything to fight the parents out there that are going to buy the wrong console because they don't pay attention to stuff. They can't really do anything about that other than getting rid of the original Xbox, not the original Xbox One, that's been gone for a while now, but the Xbox One line, which they may already be doing, because I remember seeing recently that supposedly, this is not confirmed at all, do not take my word for this, but it has been rumored and talked about through several retailers that they are not getting any more stock of both Xbox One S or Xbox One X. This combined with Microsoft kind of doing fire sale prices, at least with the One X. Like, for example, I don't know if it's still there. I'm going to go ahead and check something real quick, so be prepared to hear my keyboard being a keyboard. But let's go to the Microsoft store, not the app. not the Windows Store. Well, people still call it the Windows Store, even though it's been called the Microsoft Store for years. But I'm not talking about that Microsoft Store. I'm talking about the Microsoft Store as in the website, the Microsoft Store. I believe last time I checked on the Microsoft Store, they were selling Xbox One X's for $300, which is kind of interesting. I mean, in a way it makes sense, because, I mean, hey, their new console's coming out. They want to get rid of all their old stock. But at the same time, that kind of seems weird, because unless you're Nintendo, you don't discontinue your current console right when the next one's coming out. Like, for example, Nintendo, they discontinued the Wii U 2 months before the Switch came out. But that made sense because it was the Wii U. And even though I love the Wii U and I have a lot of great memories with it, and I do think it's a good console overall, we all know the console bombed. We all know this. I was there for the entire duration. I had a Wii U, not day one, but like Christmas 2012. So like virtually day one. I had it through its entire lifespan, and it's obvious that the console did not do well. There was that big burst in like 2014 and 2015 with games like Mario Kart 8, Smash Wii U, Splatoon. But then by 2016 it was on death row. And anyways, I'm getting off topic here, but anyways, yeah, with Nintendo, they always, like, once the new console's out, they ditch the old one. And no, the 3DS still being sold doesn't count because the Switch is not a direct successor to the 3DS. The Switch Lite is basically the successor to the 3DS, but it's still not a direct portable successor necessarily. The Switch, even though Nintendo's been like, oh, it's a hybrid, everything, let's be real here. In practicality standpoint, from any real practical standpoint, the Switch is a successor to the Wii U. That's what it's a direct successor to. But it's also a successor to the 3DS, even though the 3DS is still being sold. But anyways, I'm getting off track here. Point is, okay, Sony, they still sold PS2s long into the PS3 generation. In fact, there were still PS2 games being made until 2013. The last game, to my knowledge, at least here in the West, that was released on PS3 was FIFA 14. FIFA 14, which was the launch game for PS4 and Xbox One, which means you could get FIFA 14 on PS2, 3, and 4. That's pretty wild, right? Like, I believe they discontinued consoles like a year or two before that, but no, even Sony first-party games, they were still making like MLB The Show until like 2011 on the PS2. It's like the PS2 lasted like pretty long. I wasn't really around for it. I grew up with the GameCube and the Wii in the mid to late 2000s, but, well, I should say, yeah, mid to late 2000s as well as the early 2010s. That's kind of when that was kind of my childhood period, so to speak. But point is, the consoles don't get discontinued that fast unless they do really badly, or they're not worthy of keeping around. Like, for example, Microsoft with the original Xbox, they pretty much ditched it once the 360 was in. Like, once the 360 was a very clear success, they just dropped the original Xbox. But Sony kept the PS2 going for years and years. And again, the Xbox 360 and PS3 were still being sold, and games were still being made for it years after the PS4 and Xbox One were out. The 360 was discontinued in 2016, and the PS3 was discontinued 2015, 16, 17, depending on the region. But it was done by 2017. And by that point, games weren't being made for it anymore outside of, like, FIFA. So, yeah. But the Xbox One, while clearly not as successful as the PS4, I mean, we don't have any official numbers because Microsoft stopped reporting them in, like, November 2014. Probably because they weren't all that great. Although I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anyone. The latest reports we have heard is they've hit the 50 million mark. Okay? 50 million is not bad. It really isn't. 50 million is a solid number. But it doesn't look as impressive when the PS4 is at 110 million and the Switch, which, by the way, is much newer than the Xbox One, it came out halfway through the generation, has already beat it. The Switch has sold more than the Xbox One, even though the Xbox One was several years older and has been around for longer. Yeah. However, I have to give major props to Phil Spencer and the team over at Xbox that's here now, because they have come a long way since the days of 2013 and Don Matrick and TV, and we have a product for those that don't have internet. It's called Xbox 360. All of that stuff, they have come a long. Oh yeah, and the Kinect. They've come a long way since then. The very fact that people are actually excited for a new Xbox, like, yes, PlayStation has still got the leg up, and there's definitely still damage from the Xbox. Like, that 2013 reveal, it's still biting Xbox all these years later. They still have not fully recovered from it. They've come a long way, but they still haven't fully recovered yet. People still rag on Microsoft for what I feel are for very unreasonable reasons. Like, okay, you want to complain about the whole, there's no exclusives thing, fine, but, like, the console is pretty good now. Like, Game Pass is awesome. Everything works the way it should. You don't have to use the Kinect. It's not $500. There's no online DRM. Like, none of the problems that plagued the original Xbox. Well, okay, the online-only DRM stuff never actually happened at launch. They got rid of that right after, like, Sony did their whole thing where, like, oh yeah, like, you won't have DRM. You can, oh yeah, and then, I think I mentioned this in the last discussion, but I have to bring it up again because it's so legendary all these years later. So, you know, Microsoft announced the Xbox One. Everyone hated it. The online DRM, the focus on TV, all that stuff. And then Sony came blazing through with the PS4 at E3. And they were just completely mopping the floor with Microsoft. Like, that E3, single-handedly, they won the generation right there and then. I'm not someone that's all, like, I'm not a console war person at all. Like, I like all the consoles. I want to have all the consoles. I want to see everyone succeed. I'm not someone that gets super embroiled in the console wars or anything like that. But that E3 basically won Sony the generation. Like, it did. And it damaged Microsoft for years and years and years to come, to the point where, despite the fact that the console is pretty good now, and it's totally worth having, it's still hurting them all these years later. That just kind of shows how badly Don Matrick and his crew just screwed up Xbox so royally. In fact, I was watching, because Digital Foundry, like, a week or two ago, put out their, like, little, like, retrospective on, like, the Xbox One reveal, like, the May, 2013, Don Matrick TV, like, the original reveal. And I've never actually seen it, because I didn't really get into all this, like, following gaming news and watching E3. I didn't do that stuff until, like, 2014 and 2015. So I've heard the legend of how bad the original Xbox One reveal was, but I never actually saw it myself. I just heard it was really bad. So that Digital Foundry, like, retrospective was my first ever exposure to it, and I'm surprised that there really is that much focus on TV. Like, I kind of thought that the whole TV thing was a bit hammed up. Like, yeah, they talked about TV a lot, but it wasn't, like, that much. Nah, it's kind of like, yeah, they talk about the 360 and how great it was. Then they talk about, oh yeah, Xbox One, it's your home entertainment setup, the only box you'll ever need in your living room, all that stuff. And then they talk about, like, one game, I think, at the very beginning, although I could be wrong because it has been a little while since I've seen it. And then they just talk about, like, everything else, like the Kinect, the TV, the entertainment thing. They talk about that for, like, the vast majority of the presentation. And then they show, like, Call of Duty Ghosts at the end or whatever. Like, they barely talk about games in that presentation. Compare this to the PS4 reveal of February 2013, and you got Mark Cerny on stage. And of course he talks about the specs and other things, but they show games. They showed Knack, infamously so. They had, Killzone Shadowfall. They had Destiny, I think. Like, they had games. And people were excited for it. And that was before the Xbox One, by the way. So Microsoft had a lot to live up to, and, well, we all know how that panned out. But anyways, I'm getting off track here. But my original point before I got completely sidetracked was the previous gen consoles always last a couple more years even into the new generation. So it seems really strange for Microsoft to discontinue the Xbox One line of systems before the Series X is even out, or the Series line, I should say, is out. Because it's not, even if, like, 50 million units is not a failure. There's no, especially when they're talking about Game Pass and how they're focusing more on the service aspect of it rather than them selling consoles. You'd think they'd want to keep at least the 1S around as like a super ultra budget system, but of course you gotta remember, this console, you know, the one that we're here to talk about today, supposedly, even though I haven't really talked about it all that much yet, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it, I promise. But of course, like, if the Xbox Series X was the only system, yeah, they'd probably keep at least the 1S around as like the super cheap budget console. But if the Series S is going to be a thing, and it's going to run all the next-gen games and everything, then what's the point in having the original Xbox One line? Especially when the Series X and S is going to be running the same UI, the same OS, like, it's going to be backwards compatible with all the games. Like, basically, it's a better version of the Xbox One. So why buy an Xbox One when you can just buy an Xbox Series S or X, for that matter? That's probably the reason why they may be discontinuing it. Although, last I heard, as in, like, literally, like, today or whatever, supposedly the console is not actually discontinued yet. And it probably won't for at least a little while. Even if the Series S exists, I can't see them at least getting... Okay, they'll get rid of the 1X, but they won't get rid of the 1S. They'll probably bargain basement that thing. At least get, like, at least for another year. Like, they'll at least keep the 1S going for another year. And then they'll kill it. But, like, we'll just have to wait and see. But, yeah, anyways, point was... Yeah. Yeah, enough about that. Let's actually talk about the Series S. So, yeah. Xbox Series X is, of course, the main console Microsoft has been focusing on so far. They have not made a single peep about the Series S so far, outside of that E3 2019 thing where they said there's going to be multiple Xboxes. That's the only official conference. Well, that and, like, the... What's his name? Matt Booty, I think is his name. He's, like, the head of Xbox Game Studios. Not Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer's the head of Xbox as a whole, but, like, Matt Booty is the head of, like, Xbox Game Studios. I think he also brought up the whole, you know, it's called Xbox because it's a platform and we're going to have multiple devices or whatever. But they've only talked about the Series X so far. They have barely made a peep about Series S or any other console. The number one 100% focus has been Series X, Series X, Series X, Series X, Series X, and it is the main console. But I don't know, it just kind of seems a little weird to me they won't at least mention the Series S, at least a little bit. Maybe that their idea is that they want to establish the Series X as being the main console, and then, like, closer to launch, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to have the Series S, you know, like an entry-level thing, but the Series X, though, the Series X, that's the console to buy. But, again, they're probably going to reveal the Series S in the Microsoft, the Series X presentation. Because if they don't reveal it there, when are they going to reveal it? Inside Xbox. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous video, because I think I might have talked about this a little bit in the previous video, but the whole, like, inside Xbox, I don't think I've ever watched any of them live, but I have seen clips from them, and they really aren't Nintendo Directs. Like, it is Microsoft's Nintendo Direct, but it's not a Nintendo Direct. It really isn't. It's got its own unique, like, it doesn't, like, they got the interviewers, they got people on screen, like, in a studio. Like, it's not a Nintendo Direct. It isn't. State of Play is a Nintendo Direct. It's literally a carbon copy. The last, like, real one we had in, like, September. Oh, hey, Sony's copying, darn it. Sony's copying Nintendo with not doing a big event since then. Well, except, of course, Sony had the PS5 event last month, so yeah. But yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll announce it inside of a, like, August or September inside Xbox or something. But, like, I can't imagine that they would save something as big as a console reveal. Yeah, it's the lower end SKU, but I can't imagine they would save something that's as big as Xbox Series S, especially for what it could entail from Microsoft. And again, we'll get to that. I know I've been talking a lot about the Series X and other things. We'll get to the Series S, I promise. We will get to that in a bit. We're almost going to get to that. I just have, like, one or two more things left I want to really say about some other stuff. But yeah, like, the Series S is going to be, like, most likely announced. Like, at this point, if the Series S is not announced in that big event, it's not happening at launch. Because that's another thing people haven't really talked about is, hey, we've all just been assuming that the Series S is going to be there at launch, but would it really be that surprising to have them have the launch be focused around Series X, and then like 6 months to a year later, then they roll out the Series S? That really wouldn't be that big of a surprise to me. And it would be a good way of establishing Series X as the main console. But they're not going to wait halfway through the generation. Like, they're not going to wait, like this, like the Series S is not the slim model. That's another thing too, is even though it's technically the Xbox Series X Slim, kinda, it's not at all. Because it's not just the main console, but smaller and more power efficient. It's a completely different box with different specs. This isn't a Slim. This is more than that. And I guess with that being said, let's actually, for real, now that we're like 20 minutes in here, let's actually talk about why the Xbox Series X could be exactly what Microsoft needs. So as I talked about previously, the Xbox One had a really bad start. Don Matrix just shot themselves in the foot like 15 times. They were crippled. They were on the ground. They needed someone, like they needed CPR. They needed like everything, man. Like they... Yeah, I think that kind of goes without saying. But once Don Matrick was kicked out and Phil Spencer was brought in, slowly over the lifespan of the console, he slowly resurrected the brand with, making, by bringing in requested features like backwards compatibility and Xbox Game Pass being a thing. That's a huge thing now. It's one of the big reasons why I and many others would say, go buy an Xbox. Like, yeah, you can play your Halos and Gears and Forzas, and that's cool and all. And maybe your friends have an Xbox and you want to play games with them, and the games you want to play with them aren't cross-play. Although, that reason to buy an Xbox is slowly going away. The whole, oh, I have to buy an Xbox because all my friends are on Xbox. That's slowly going away as more and more games are becoming cross-play. That should be a mandatory feature, by the way. That literally should be a mandate for Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, that like if the game is multiplayer and it is cross-platform, it must be cross-play supported, at least optionally. And of course, I know there's people are going to talk about, oh, but I don't want to play against a PC player. Well, okay, fair enough. At least consoles, like if you release a game on Xbox One, PS4, and Switch, and it's multiplayer, it has to, legally required, you have to be able to play with at least all the other consoles. There's no reason not to. More and more games are doing this. It's a very pro-consumer, pro-gamer move, and at this point, it's practically become a standard. Like, even big franchises like Call of Duty have adopted it with their latest installments. Like, whether or not you include PC crossplay and how you handle that is one thing, but at least all of the consoles should be able to play with each other. That should be a requirement for every game this generation. Easily. Not even up for discussion. That's a very good thing to do. But yeah, but the best reason to buy an Xbox One right now is probably Game Pass. Like, you can get an Xbox One for pretty cheap now, honestly. Like, at least if you go on, like, eBay. You can get, like, okay, maybe not this second because we're still in the middle of the pandemic. So prices for consoles are still kind of high. Like, for example, a Nintendo Switch is still, like, ridiculously priced on eBay. In fact, I'm going to go and check right now again because I think I brought this up in the last video as well, but I'm not sure. But hey, if I didn't, I'm going to bring it up here because, oh my god, these prices are kind of crazy if I'm being honest. Okay, Nintendo Switch, buy now, okay? $459, $360, $299, $360, $448, $499, $429, $425, $38. Okay, some of these are like not as bad, but I remember looking on here a couple weeks ago and they were all like $400, $500, like brand new, like not used, brand new. They're like $400, $500, when the console's supposed to be $300. Oh, and you want to buy just the tablet? Like if you're like me, where I want to have another Switch, but I don't want to buy an entire new, like you just want the tablet. You just want the tablet, because that's what I want to do right now, because we got one Switch, but my brother doesn't have a Switch and he needs another Switch. So we were going to just buy because we got plenty of Pro controllers and we got multiple docks already. Like, we don't need, like, yeah, we're going to get Joy-Cons eventually because we got to have another pair of Joy-Cons, for portable play and stuff. But we don't need all that stuff. We just need the tablet. That's all we need. You want to know how much the tablet costs you right now? You want to know how much it costs? Because it is not good right now. It is ridiculously overpriced for just the tablet. Like, who would ever buy this for that price tag? Okay. Okay, you know, okay, this one's not as... Okay, hold on a sec. Read. Oh, boy. Okay, what's the... No wireless Joy-Con connection. Okay, so basically, yeah, that one doesn't count. Okay, the lowest price I can see right now is $239. That's not as bad as it was a couple weeks ago. So it's starting to lower, but I'm not joking. Most tablet only like listings were like minimum $250, sometimes, and not uncommonly, $300 plus. That's right. Right now on eBay, you can buy just the tablet for the same price you could buy the entire system a couple months ago. All because of this pandemic. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? I have them. Like, you want to know how much the tablets normally cost by themselves? Again, I know I'm getting off track here. Look, I'm just going to be real with you. On the Nin-Cast, us getting sidetracked is a staple. If you wanted to see a more straightforward, more properly structured video on this subject, there's probably a billion other people you could be watching right now that would be talking about the Xbox Series S in a better way than I am. So I'm just kind of talking here. That's just a staple of this series, so you just kind of have to deal with that, unfortunately. But again, we'll get to it in a second. I promise, for real this time. But yeah, you can get a tablet for like 150, 160, 170, 200 max. You want to know how much money I have right now reserved for a Switch by itself? Like 160. If this pandemic didn't happen, we'd have a second Switch by now. But because it is happening, and because production is slowed down because, of course, China and everything, and of course there's all the trade war stuff that's still going on and everything. Yeah, like, yeah. So yeah. Yeah, but yeah, going back to the Xbox One, though, a couple months ago, before the pandemic began, you could get a base Xbox One, and when I say a base Xbox One, I'm talking base Xbox One, not the One S, no, I'm talking like day one 2013, base, with the shiny top, VCR, Betamax, Philips CDI, Xbox One with a 500 gig hard drive. You could get those for, I'm not even joking, like $100. Now those wouldn't have a controller. Those would not have a controller. But getting one with a controller was like, what, $150? Like, that's still pretty cheap. Like, for a console, like $150 for a modern console. Like, in a way, you almost have no excuse to not have an Xbox One. If you have even the slightest... Okay, maybe not right now, obviously, because one, the prices are higher, and also because new consoles are coming out, and the Series S, and again, we'll talk about the Series S and why it could potentially be a game changer for Microsoft. That may help them a lot with this generation against PlayStation 5. But, like, obviously, yeah, you don't want to buy an Xbox One right now because of the pandemic, and so the prices are higher, and, of course, new consoles. But if this was, like, 2019, and you had the slightest interest in getting an Xbox One, even just for, like, Game Pass, or just so you can play Halo or whatever, honestly, you have almost no excuse, because the prices are so cheap now. Compare that to the PS4. The PS4, like the base PS4, both the original PS4 as well as the Slim, are notably higher than that. They aren't drastic, well, depends on how you call drastically, but like, if an Xbox One, like by itself, 500 gig base, whatever, is 100 to 150 normally, not during a pandemic. The PS4 normally is like at least 200. Something more likely to be like 250. I've even seen them go for 300, which is like the price of the actual PS4 Slim if you just bought it brand new anyway, so that wouldn't really be worth it. And, however, one thing that's really baffling, but also not baffling at the same time, is Xbox One X. This is, of course, I talked about this earlier, like my plan was to get oh yeah, I don't think I explained this all the way, so, oh yeah, I did not explain this all the way, so let me clarify that. Going back to the whole thing where I was like, oh, I got a 1S, I'm going to sell it and get a 1X, and why would I do it this year? So the main reason why I would do that, yeah, again, was the whole, oh yeah, because I'm going to be getting a PS5 day one, not a Series X day one, because the PS5 has Spider-Man, I got to be able to play that day one. But I do want a 1X so I can play Halo Infinite and it'll actually look good on my screen. Because I have a 4K monitor. The Xbox One S on Halo, like MCC at least, works pretty well. Halo 5, however, on the 4K display It runs at 60 FPS the entire time, and that's awesome. But it's very jagged. So I can't imagine Infinite is going to be much better. So I don't want to play Infinite on a base Xbox One S. I want to be able to play it on at least a One X when it comes out. Plus, I want to be able to play Forza at like 60 FPS and also just like having a 4K, like actually 4K capable console for Game Pass. Because like I have Game Pass, but I don't use it as much as I should because I don't want to play games at 900p on my 4K screen. If I can just play a game on the PS4 Pro and it'll actually look good on my 4K screen. So basically, yeah, I want to get the One X so I can play Halo Infinite and it'll actually work really well on the screen I have, and so I can use Game Pass. Basically, is kind of like basically I just want to have a more powerful Xbox, but not have to like kill my wallet to do so. Plus, it costs me almost nothing to do this. I would not be doing this if it was not realistically viable. Like I wouldn't really mind using the Xbox One S for Halo Infinite, all things considered, if the prices to get a One X were not worth it. But I could get a One X right now. Okay, not this second, but like for like $250 to $300. By comparison, the PS4 Pro, which is notably weaker, by the way, than the Xbox One X, goes for... okay, it's actually lower than it normally is, but normally it's like $350. So like $50 to $100 more, even though the console is notably less powerful. But the reason why the reason why the One X is cheaper than the PS4 Pro, and the reason why the Xbox One is cheaper than the PS4, is of course because the PS4 is more popular, it's more valuable, people care about it more, so it costs more to get, because it's worth more to people than an Xbox One is. That's why. That's just the factual reason, I feel. But anyway, so yeah, basically the long-term plan here is, yeah, sell the One S for like whatever because I can sell One S right now for like $200 or $250, and then once the prices come down, the One X's, I can get that for like $250. So basically, it costs me nothing to upgrade. That's the main reason why I'm doing this whole thing where I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to buy a One X before the current consoles launch, even though I might as well just wait, because it will cost me literally nothing to upgrade, basically, from base Xbox One S to Xbox One X, which is a huge jump. Like, that's the biggest jump, because the hierarchy in terms of power is base Xbox One, base PS4, then PS4 Pro, then One X. So going from the base, like, because the One S is technically just a little bit more powerful than the original Xbox One, but it's an original Xbox One in terms of power, basically. We're going to go from that all the way to Xbox One X. It's going to be a huge jump, and it's going to complement my PS5 when I get it at launch way better than the base Xbox One S will. I mean, could you imagine that? Oh yeah, I got the PlayStation 5 next generation. And then it's like, oh, I have my Xbox One S here upscaling 900p to 4K. Yeah, that would not be flattering, but having an Xbox One X complement the PlayStation 5 kind of being the secondary console, because that's what the Xbox One X would be. It would still be the secondary console, so to speak, but it would complement a PlayStation 5 way more, because of course the One X actually does 4K. Now, yeah, the games from a pure visual standpoint on PlayStation 5 are going to obviously look better, but in terms of resolution, it's going to hold up just fine. Like, the games are going to still look great on One X, even if I have a PlayStation 5. Whereas the One S, maybe not. If I had a 1080p screen, this would be different. And obviously the One X and the PS4 Pro and the PS5 and the Series X and the Series S are all going to give you benefits on a 1080p screen. But like, I probably wouldn't bother all that much if I was still using a 1080p display. But I have a 4K display for my gaming now, so naturally I want everything to be 4K if I can. PlayStation 4 Pro right now, gonna upgrade that to a PlayStation 5 at launch. And then, I'll have the One X there as the secondary console for Halo and Game Pass and stuff. And they'll also be running at 4K. Maybe it won't look as good. Like, obviously. Actually, you know what? Will Halo Infinite on Xbox, on the Series X, really be that much better than the One X version? I'm not sure it will, because, of course, the game is being built with Xbox One first and foremost. So, chances are, Series X is not going to look that much better. Like, basically, it'll just be the PC version on max settings. but it's still going to look very similar and perform performance is a different story, but at least visually it's going to look like very similar. So I'm still going to be getting the most likely. I mean, we don't know. We haven't really seen that much in it. We haven't seen any infinite gameplay, let alone on Series X yet. We haven't seen any, we don't know any of this stuff yet. This is purely a prediction, purely speculation. But my prediction is that at least on Xbox One X, base Xbox One's a different story, but at least on Xbox One X, the game is going to perform and look very similarly to how it will be on the Series X. Worst case scenario, the resolution will just be lower. So if the game is native 4K on the Series X, it'll be like 1620p or whatever on One X. Although honestly, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they're going to both be native 4K, or at least it'll be dynamic. Like on Series X, it'll be fully locked, but on the One X, it'll be like dynamic or something. But again, getting off track here. Okay. We're 35 minutes in now, and we still haven't really gotten to talking about the Series S and why it matters. Okay. Enough of the side tangents. Let's actually, for real this time, watch us get sidetracked again, but let's actually get into this now. So, the Series S, why is it important? The main reason comes down to one simple fact. It's the lower budget tier option. The reason why this exists, of course, is because, I mean, the hardware in the next-gen consoles, like, the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, again, going back to the very beginning of the video, was the whole, the GPU and CPU in the PS4 and Xbox One were fine, but, like, the CPU, sorry, did I say CPU and GPU? I'm sorry, GPU and RAM were fine, but the CPU is a big limiting bottleneck. Well, now, that's not a thing anymore. The Jaguars are history, and now we have, across the entire board, by the way, really good modern specs. We got 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 on both consoles. They both have a modern AMD RDNA 2 GPU. Of course, the PS5 isn't as powerful, coming in at 10.2 teraflops, whereas the one on the Series X is, of course, 12. So the Series X is going to be the more powerful console, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest, because after Microsoft got their ass handed to them by the PS4 being more powerful, because remember the early days of the PS4 where it was all like, oh, the game's 1080p, but it's only like 720p or 900p. Yeah, they did not want to have that happen again. So they came in screaming with the One X, and the One X is like, the gap between PS4 Pro and Xbox One X is a lot bigger than the gap between base Xbox One, base PS4. And we're basically seeing that again, but not as big, where instead of 4.2 to 6 teraflops, now it's 10.2 to 12. So it's very similar in that way, but I don't think the difference is going to be as drastic, where like PS4 Pro is 1440p or 1620p or checkerboarding or whatever, and then the One X is native 4K. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think most of the games are going to be native 4K or close to it on PS5. So the only real advantage that Series X is going to have is going to be maybe graphical detail or more consistent frame rates, but I think they're going to look, resolution-wise, very similar, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, so the consoles have very modern specs. They have a modern, it's not Ryzen technically, but for any practical purposes, it's basically a customized Ryzen 3700X, which is a modern, very powerful, very capable CPU, not some old mobile trash that was converted for console use because AMD didn't have anything better to give them. We're talking about a real, legit gaming CPU that people with high-end desktops have. And if Zen 3 wasn't coming out this year, I would be upgrading to a 3700X from my 7700K, but I'm going to be waiting for Zen 3 at this point. And yes, I know the XT chips just came out, but I'd rather would just wait for a Zen 3 at this point, or just run the 7700K into the ground. But point is, both consoles, very modern specs. But of course, that means the consoles are going to be more expensive, because those are all, and again, RDNA 2, by the way, that's not even available in the PC space yet. AMD hasn't even released RDNA 2 cards in the PC space yet. These consoles have hardware that PC doesn't even have yet. Now, I'm not claiming that's more powerful, because it isn't. Even though both consoles are pretty solid beasts, especially the Series X. Obviously, PC, like, we're going to get the NVIDIA 3000 series, and it's going to blow away, I'm sure, the consoles, but they're still going to be really solid, powerful consoles. huge leap from the base PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah, this comes to like a small side note where, I mean, I get why they did the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, and ultimately I'm glad they did it, because hey, that means more power, so more resolution, so better gaming and everything. But it's also kind of softened the impact, I feel, at least somewhat, of these new consoles, because hey, we've already had 4K for years, so we're going to better 4K. Like the leap isn't as big. Like obviously the main improvement isn't resolution, because the games are all still 4K. Yeah, the consoles are 8K capable, but let's be real here. The consoles are not going to do an ounce of 8K outside of upscaling in, like, Netflix or whatever, whenever that happens in 10 years. But, yeah. But, but the main improvement is, like, the SSD. That's another big improvement. I won't really talk about that too much. I'll save the SSD talk for that future video where I talk about the PS5 and the Series X. Later after the reveal happens, but all this modern NVMe SSD, like all this very modern hardware comes at a price, and this is where people have been starting to speculate. Are we gonna get that infamous $60? $60. That's a whole other thing. The whole like $60-$70 games thing. Again, I'll save that for that future video when we talk more about next gen as a whole. But the whole $600 price tag, that infamous price tag that was made famous with the PlayStation 3, where, very similarly to what Microsoft did with the Xbox One, Sony, not probably to as big of an extent, although I wasn't really around during that time span to really know for sure. The impression I get is I don't think Sony shot themselves in the foot as badly with the PS3 launch as what Microsoft did with the Xbox One launch. At least from my perspective, from what I can tell. Again, I wasn't really around. I was like 6 when that whole stuff went down. I was just getting my first console, like the GameCube, for Christmas that year. I wasn't paying attention to gaming news in 2006. But yes. These consoles are going to be expensive, which means, that $500, $600, people even talked about $700, which is completely ridiculous. I don't care how powerful the consoles are. Microsoft and Sony are not going to charge $700 for a console. No one is going to buy it. It will stigmatize the consoles for years to come. It would be a terrible idea. $600? I still think that's unlikely because, again, look what happened to the PS3, and even the PS4 and Xbox One weren't that high. But, or I should say the One X wasn't even that high. But, I think both consoles are going to be $500. But regardless, that's still $500. And if I didn't have consoles I could already sell, because that's the main way I'm going to be able to get a PlayStation 5 at launch, by the way, is I'm going to be selling my PS4 Pro shortly before the console comes out. So I'm going to be paying like half price. So basically, it'll cost me like $250 to get a PS5. So it's like half price. And if I want to do the same thing, like, if I want to sell my One X before the Series X comes out, if I want to go that far, maybe even that'll also be like virtually half price. But if you don't already have a console, or you don't want to sell your stuff, or don't want to risk it, or whatever, let's be real here. Most people, 99% of people, are not going to be selling their old consoles. They're going to be keeping their old ones, and they're going to be paying the full price, the full 500 smackaroos for those new consoles. That's $500. Especially if you're like younger, if you're a kid, that's going to annoy the hell out of you, because it's like, it's $500. I'm never going to get one. Like, man, but and again, I was in that situation once where the price tag seemed so unreachable. I was there with the Xbox One all those years ago, or 2013, 2014, 2015. I was like, Xbox One, I really want Xbox One. And I would follow like sales, and every time there was a sale on the console, I would always be like, hey, and, I'd be talking to my parents like, oh yeah, so the Xbox One's on sale, and it's like $400 or $300, like whatever the deal was at the time. And say, that you're just saying, it's on sale. Yeah, I was there. I felt the pain. And a whole new generation of people are going to go through that same thing, where a new console is going to come out. It's going to be awesome. They really want to play the new games, but that $500 price tag, it seems so unreachable for most people. Well, at least, again, if you're younger, at least. But still, $500 is still $500 to spend on a new console. But that is where the Series S comes in. Because while the PlayStation 5 and the Series X with their beefy modern specs are going to be costing you a pretty penny no matter what they cost, but again, I think both consoles are going to be $500. I know there's the whole, they're waiting for one of them to announce it so they'll undercut the other. Honestly, I think that I'm at least going in with the assumption that they're both going to be $500. If the PS5 is $400, cool. If the Series X is $400, cool. But I'm expecting both consoles are going to be $500. That's what I'm going. That's my plan. I am planning around them both being $500. And again, I have consoles I can sell. I can sell my PS4 Pro. I can sell my One X when I get my hands on that later on. Like, I can sell my consoles to upgrade to the new ones, and that's going to be a lot more viable this time around than last generation because, of course, both the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are going to be both backwards compatible with the previous generation, and maybe more. I mean, you know, PS1, 2, and 3 on PS5 is still kind of a pipe dream right now, but, you know, again, I'll talk about that in the next video when we get to that subject. And, of course, Microsoft has been supporting 360 games for years now, but yeah, this is where Series S comes in. This is where Microsoft could really snag some market share and could really dominate this generation. Even though, again, I'm not into the console fanboy wars, any of that stuff. That doesn't mean I can't see business reasons behind this. It doesn't mean I can't see, I can totally see if Microsoft does this right, this could be a huge boon for them this generation. Even though they've talked about how they're not concerned about selling consoles, they're concerned about selling Game Pass and stuff, and I get it, and that is important. But obviously, if Microsoft could pick between the console selling well or selling really well, they're going to pick the console selling really well. Even if the Series X doesn't do super great in its first couple of years because of the high price tag and, quote, lesser exclusives compared to what PlayStation will be offering. But again, we'll talk about the whole exclusives and, you know, the whole, like, that later on in the next video after the Microsoft event happens, where they will hopefully be revealing a bunch of more exclusives. But, that's where, yeah, Series S could come in, because Series S has lesser specs. It has, not all of them are lesser, though. This is the key thing. They aren't just taking a 1X and rebranding it. This includes the same modern specs as its higher-end brethren, with one exception. It has that same Zen 2 CPU that's basically a customized 3700X. It still has that 16 gigabytes of GDDR6. It still has that fast NVMe SSD. It still has everything else that the Series X is going to be sporting, with one major key difference. And the main reason why this console, if priced correctly, could be a big deal. It has a 4 teraflop GPU instead of a 12 teraflop GPU, but it's based on the same AMD RDNA 2 architecture, so it's going to support all the same features. It's going to have ray tracing. It's going to have everything that the Series X does. It's just less powerful. Now, of course, people that don't pay attention to this stuff too well, or don't follow Digital Foundry, they look at the numbers and they're like, wait, 4 teraflops? That's less powerful than the PS4 Pro and especially the One X. How is this? What a laughable joke, this next-gen system that's less powerful than the current consoles. But that's not actually how it works. Because the current consoles, their GPUs aren't as capable, because they're on an older architecture. They don't support ray tracing. They don't support any of those new fancy features that next-generation consoles are going to have. And that means that, basically, because the architecture is a lot more efficient than the old, like, Polaris architecture that was in the PS4 Pro, and I don't know if Polaris was on the Xbox One X, but I know it was in the PS4 Pro. You get a lot more power for your teraflop in newer architectures than you do in the old ones. So, comparing 4 teraflops of Polaris to 4 teraflops of RDNA 2 is completely night and day. Now, I don't know what the equivalence is going to be. I think Digital Foundry did a video talking about, oh, what's it going to be like, but like how much does 4 teraflops of RDNA 2 equate to in like old school and like Polaris or Vega? You know, like I think they did a video talking about this. I don't remember what it was, but basically, the point is, the Series S is more powerful than the One X. Ignore the teraflop count, because it doesn't matter in this particular instance, because they're two completely different architectures. But that the 4 teraflops in the Series S is more capable than the 6 teraflops in the One X is the main point I'm trying to drive here. So the games are going to look and run better on the Series S than they will on the Xbox One X. Although that may include the awkward situation where, hey, a game is native 4K, but the graphics are worse on the One X, and then the game is like 1080p or 1440p, but it's got ray tracing and stuff, and better textures and everything on the Series S. So that might be a little awkward, where the older console was a higher resolution, but it's like, whatever, it's the budget console. But yeah, so that lower tier GPU, that right there is the key way, because that lower tier GPU is of course going to cost a lot less for Microsoft and AMD to manufacture, and that will bring costs down. And the rumored pricing is maximum like $300, and even though there's no way this is going to happen, but this has been talked about all over the place. There's even people talking about, credible sources even, I think, don't quote me on this, don't shoot me if I get this wrong, but of course there's been talk also about maybe even this insane, magical, like, pie in the sky, $200 price tag. You heard me right, $200 for a Series S. I'm sorry, that is not happening. Unless Microsoft wants to take some serious losses on their consoles. That is, I don't care how much they want to push Game Pass as being the more important thing. $200, at that point you're just giving the console away. You're just giving the console away at that point. You might as well just give it away if it's going to cost $200. $300 is what I think it's actually going to cost. And again, going back to before, the Series X I think is going to be $500. So $500 for Series X, $300 for Series S. And it's basically the same thing as the Series X, but it's going to probably be a smaller form factor. It probably won't be the Cube, sadly, even though everyone wants it to be the Cube. And again, it's what I'm using for this thumbnail because, like, come on, that design is perfect. Microsoft should just use that design, but they're not going to. It's probably going to look more like the Series X than that Cube, but maybe it'll be an Xbox One X form factor. I've heard some people in the industry talk about how it's going to look a lot more like the Xbox One X than the Series X, which would be fine with me because the Xbox One X, like the console itself, like physically looks pretty good, so I'd be fine with that. But at the same time, it's like, please, Phil, can we have the Cube? Can we please have the Cube? Maybe that'll be a new edition I'll do later on, limited edition or something. They won't do that. But so yeah, $300 is probably what the actual price tag is going to be. Maybe $250, but I'm thinking $300. $200 difference, and it's going to cost less than whatever the PS5 is going to be. Because even if the PS5 is $400, the Series S is $100 cheaper than that, which is again in turn $200 cheaper than the Series X. That combined with the fact that the games are going to look, quote unquote, just as good as they will on the Series X, just with lower resolution, and again you'll have Game Pass and all that stuff. It's going to be a magnet for families, kids, and people. And this is the big one, I think, that a lot of people aren't really talking about. But especially for the people that are going to buy a PS5 as their primary console, but they're interested in getting an Xbox as well. I think that's a big market that no one's talking about. Everyone's talking about, oh yeah, obviously the cheaper console for the kids and stuff, and and whatnot. And yeah, and that's going to obviously be a big market. That's going to be a big drawing force. Because again, going back to the whole thing with the kid that's like, oh, I want the new console. But like, it's going to be a lot easier to sell your parents on a $300 console than a $500 console. Especially if the games, quote, look and play the same as they do on the more powerful system. But, again, look at the current generation. Xbox One. 500 million. Oh, Microsoft would have killed to have it sell 500 million. Yeah, no console has come anywhere close to that. But yeah, again, Xbox One, 50 million. PS4, 110 million. I think a similar thing is going to occur this generation, at least with the primary systems. The PlayStation 5 is going to sell more than the Series X. It's just going to. It has the games, it has the install base, it has the brand, this power of the PlayStation brand. And again, Xbox still, after all this time, still has a somewhat negative reputation among at least certain people. Obviously, again, they've come a long way since then, but it still has that not mystique. It still has that haze surrounding it, So while I do think the Series X is going to come closer to the PS5 in terms of total sales, because again, they've come a long way since 2013, and the console is going to be more appealing because of Game Pass and stuff, the PS5 is going to sell more. And again, I know Microsoft is not focused on selling the most units, but obviously if they could sell more units, that'd be awesome. So the Series S, however, especially if they could hit that $200 price tag, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's very lowest price will be like $250, which would be half the price of the the Series X. Again, Series X $500, Series S $250 or $300, whatever. At a price tag, but they can hit. Okay, let's say they hit that $200 price tag. Let's just say, in theory, they hit that magical pie in the sky $200 price tag. If they hit that price tag, that console is going to fly off the shelves. Not just with kids and families, but with people that want an Xbox as a secondary system. That's a heavily underrated market right there. Because I know there are people out there that would buy an Xbox, but they don't want to buy a $500 Xbox. But they want to play Xbox games and they want to have Game Pass. Or they just want to see what life is like on the other system without having to give up their main console. I can tell you right now, I can see a lot of people having the PlayStation 5 and the Series S. I can totally see that. PlayStation 5 is the main platform they play on, or it's the one they play with their friends, or they get it for so they can play Uncharted. Well, I don't know if there's gonna be a new Uncharted, although there are rumors about a new Uncharted. But again, we'll save that for the next video. They want to play God of War. They want to play, Spider-Man. They want to play Horizon. They want to play Gran Turismo. They want to play all the Sony games, and they already were fully on board with PlayStation 4. But they're curious about Xbox. Maybe they'll announce maybe they want to try out Halo Infinite. Maybe they want to have Game Pass. Maybe they'll announce some more big exclusives that'll draw them in. Maybe they'll announce a new Banjo. Even though I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Who knows? Maybe we'll get that pie in the sky. Everyone's been dreaming about it for years announcement. Well, they'll announce a new Banjo. That will get people to buy an Xbox. That right there, that'll be a huge Xbox, but especially Series S seller. The people that want to play those couple of games, but they don't want to spend that much money to play them. If they don't already have an Xbox One, a Series S is going to be perfect for games like Banjo, where they're not going to be graphically insane. I mean, the games would still look good on the Series S anyway, but you're not losing much by playing Banjo on an Xbox Series S as opposed to an Xbox Series X. It's Banjo. It's not going to be a graphical pusher. I'm sure it's going to look really good, or it would look really good if it did happen, but it's not going to be a graphical showcase. So you're not losing much by playing it on Series S. And again, if you just wanted an Xbox to play that one game, $200 is a hell of a lot more appealing than $500. So yeah, that price tag right there is going to be the big thing, because the games are going to still be next gen. They're still going to have ray tracing. They're still going to look just as good as Xbox Series X, the premium platform, the main one. But they'll run at a lower resolution. And then there's another thing too I haven't even really taken into account yet, and that is 1080p screens. We're kind of just accustomed to 4K being the norm now. I mean, I got a 4K TV. I got a 4K monitor. I play games at 4K if I can. But that doesn't change the fact that there's still a lot of people out there that just have a 1080p screen. And for them, there is no practical reason, except for 0.1% of the people out there that are super concerned about I can get super sampling. But for 99% of people, if you just have a 1080p screen, the Series S is all you are ever going to need. That's all you're going to need. You don't need anything higher than that, because the Series S is targeting, at least according to the rumors, 1080p and maybe even 1440p. So if the games have the same graphics, the same visuals as the Series X version, but it's just 1080p, and you have a 1080p screen, just buy a Series S. It'll cost you way less to get into the platform too. Again, $200, $250, $300, that's still way cheaper than the Series X. And again, secondary platform here. I think that's going to be a big market for the Series S. It's going to be people that have a PS5. I think that's going to be a big selling point. That's going to be a big market. It's going to be half kids and families, and then the other half is going to be PS5 owners. Because if you're really invested into the Xbox platform, you're just going to buy a Series X anyway. I'm going to be getting a Series X, not day one, but I'm going to be getting a Series X by the end of 2021. I can assure you that much. Maybe I'll get it sooner than that. Maybe like in February 2021, I'll sell my One X and get a Series X. I don't know. But I care about resolution, so I want the Series X. But if you don't care that much about resolution, as long as it's HD and it's not blurry, or you have a 1080p screen, or again, you just want a cheaper console, like there's several reasons to buy a Series S. If you don't care about the resolution, if you know kids and families, if you have a PS5 but you want to play Halo or Game Pass and stuff, and also just it's a great budget entry, like it's a cheap way to get into the get into the next generation. So yeah, I mean, Series S. I mean, okay, actually, there's one aspect of the platform I have not brought up yet. And this is probably the only downside to the platform it's probably going to have, and is an automatic no-go for me, but I know for a lot of other people it's not going to matter. And that is, the rumors, the Series S will not have a disk drive. Now, of course, the fan, the cube, right? The one that's in the thumbnail right now and the one you've seen everywhere doesn't have a disk drive anyway, so you could kind of already determine that. But if people don't already know this, chances are the console is not going to have a disk drive on it. And I know, especially if you're going to be getting most of your gaming on the system through Game Pass, it won't matter. And maybe you already buy most of your games digitally anyway, so who cares? But for me, I gotta have a disk drive, at least for a main console. I may get a Series S later on to put in like the living room or something, or whatever, as like the Game Pass system, but if I want a main console, I don't care if it's a secondary console now. If I want a console I'm going to be using a lot, I gotta have a disk drive. I want to be able to use my 4K Blu-rays. I want to be able to have physical games. I gotta be able to have that. It's a requirement. I have to have a disk drive. But I know for a lot of other people, hey, it's $200. Who cares if it doesn't have a disk drive? It's $200. And yeah, I wouldn't blame them at all, especially if they're going to be getting the system to use Game Pass with. Because I mean, if you were buying an Xbox to use Game Pass with it, not primarily, the console being digital only won't matter. And of course, Sony is going to be doing a digital edition of the PS5. And I know there's going to be people out there that are just going to, especially, well, at least if the console was substantially cheaper, like the whole, I think the quote-unquote perfect pricing for the PlayStation 5 is $400 for the digital edition and then $500 for the regular model. And again, I'll be getting the regular model because I need to have a disc drive. But if the console is more like $450 to $500, it's going to be really hard to justify buying that digital-only edition when you can just spend not that much more and get the one with the disc drive on it. But if it's notably cheaper, like $100, or maybe if Sony really wants to go crazy, they can do like $350 and $500. If they do something like that, then there's a reason for the discless version of the console to exist. Because if the price is not good, then why buy it? This is the main problem that happened with the infamous Xbox Series, not the Xbox Series S, the Xbox One S all digital edition, or as it's most infamously known as, Xbox SAD. Yeah. The main problem with that console was not that it was discless. That was not the problem with it. The problem was the price tag. It was like the same or more expensive, depending on where you looked, than a regular Xbox One S with a disc drive. Why buy it? Especially when it was released, like, in, like, what, May 2019? Like, it was the beginning of the end of the generation. Like, 2019 was when this generation, like, by that point, if you wanted an Xbox One, you had one. The generation was slowly nearing its end in 2019. But the Series S is not going to have that problem. It's going to be at least $200 cheaper than the Series X. Plus, again, maybe they'll go for that $200 price tag and they'll just say, screw it, we're going to take a big loss on the console. We're going to just sell a ton of Game Pass subscriptions. But yeah. So yeah, it also makes sense in a way why the Series S would be digital only, because again, the main purpose of the Series S, from Microsoft's perspective, is probably a Game Pass machine. I think that's the main thing they're using the Series S for, is a Game Pass machine. I think that's what its primary purpose is going to be for a lot of people, is it's going to be the Game Pass machine. Or or just to play the Microsoft exclusives, which are going to be on Game Pass. So, you know, Halo Infinite, if we get a new Banjo game, if we get any of the new IPs like Everwild and whatnot, and Hellblade 2, like all that stuff is going to be included in Game Pass. Because that's a selling point of Game Pass, is you get all the Microsoft games included. So, on day one, by the way. So, yeah. So yeah. This video has been dragged out quite a long time, and I didn't even talk about this as long as I probably should have, but yeah, Xbox Series S, like, if they can somehow hit that magical $200 price tag, the console's gonna fly off the shelves. And you know what? If the Series S is that cheap, I think it's very possible the console will sell more than the PS5, or at least it'll come really close. Series X, I think, is going to be closer to the PS5 than the Xbox One was to the PS4. Like, for example, at the end of the generation, the Series X will be at like 70 million as opposed to 50 million on the Xbox One. Then the PlayStation 5 will be at 100 million. So it'll be closer. It'll be closer to the PS5, but it won't be as high. But the Series S could really help Microsoft get those units going. Because even if the Series X still does really well, but doesn't do as well as the PS5, the Series S can come in and just inflate those numbers like you wouldn't believe. That will be a huge boon to Microsoft this generation if they can pull the Series S off. If they can get the right price tag going, and they can make sure it's readily available. And remember, to Microsoft, they don't really care which console you buy. That's been their whole thing, is that, like, oh, we don't care if you buy an Xbox, as long as you buy our games or you buy Game Pass, that's what matters the most. Like, if you buy our consoles, great. But what we really care about is that you get that Game Pass subscription. You get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, especially. You give us that nice $15 a month, which, by the way, is totally worth it, because Game Pass is awesome. And it just includes Xbox Live Gold anyway, so yeah. But you can get Game Pass by itself for cheaper, so, which is what most people are probably going to do anyway. So yeah, okay, I think I've dragged this on long enough. We got really sidetracked, but, you know, that's the nature of these videos. But yeah, so I guess long story short here is, yeah, Xbox Series S. It could be a game changer for Microsoft. It really could. Because I think the Series S combined with Game Pass is going to be a big deal for a lot of people. For kids and families, for people that have a PS5, and just in general. Like, come on, a $200 or $300 next-gen console that can play all the same games as the more expensive systems, and it will still perform and look really well. And again, if you have a 1080p screen, then just buy a Series S. There's no reason to buy a Series X if you got a 1080p screen. Unless you really want, like, super sampling. But, like, most people don't care about that. Like, I care about super sampling, but, like, most people, they don't care about that. Well, let's be real here. Most people don't care about the nitty-gritty details. I am a tech enthusiast. I am a graphics whore. I am one of those people that loves specs and all that stuff. I care about that stuff. You care about well, maybe you care about this stuff. I don't know. But most people don't. And that's what the Series S is going to appeal to. The Series X is going to do well amongst people that are already invested in the Xbox ecosystem, as well as, of course, the hardcore fans. And those that want the best experience the consoles can offer. But for everyone else, and let's be real here, everyone else is most of the market. But for the mainstream user, the people that are going to buy a PS5, because that's the console they're going to get, because, come on, they got to play Spider-Man and stuff. And they want to play with their friends, and they just have a loyalty to PlayStation. They're going to get a PlayStation 5 no matter what. And again, kids, families, lower income, and just, you know, secondary console. Like, yeah, Series S, if Microsoft prices this console badly, then it shouldn't exist. If the console is like $400, then it doesn't need to exist. It has to be at least $300. Because if it's $400, why buy it? There's no reason to buy it. You can buy a PlayStation 5 digital edition for the same price. And again, and we're comparing a digital edition to another digital edition, so you wouldn't even be sacrificing anything. You'd literally just be gaining more power and the exclusives and stuff. But yeah, so, okay. I think I'm about done here. So yeah, Xbox Series S. I really hope Microsoft can do this right because, yeah, it could be a game changer for them. I really think it could be a game changer for them if they do this right. But of course, we're going to have to wait and see how the console pans out when it is most likely revealed at the Series X event that I will be doing. I will most likely be streaming because it's a big event. And I will be doing, again, I've mentioned this several times in the video, but I will be doing a bigger, more comprehensive, like PlayStation 5 versus the Series console. Well, not versus, but like comparison / expectations / we're just gonna talk about both of those consoles and everything going on with them once Microsoft has their event. I was gonna do this earlier, but I want to put it off because, you know, Sony's, you know, we got Spider-Man, we got Horizon, like, you know, they've kind of shown their cards already. Microsoft is still holding their cards. They still haven't shown us what we're gonna be getting quite yet. We know about the console. We know about the console, but we don't know about the games. And most important, we don't know about Halo Infinite. We've been waiting for Halo Infinite since 2018. And we're finally going to see gameplay of it. And I really hope it's the Halo game that we all hope it is. But anyways, I guess that's all I really have to say. So yeah, stay tuned for my eventual video I will make about the what you know, PlayStation 5 and the Series consoles as a whole. I'm going to be most likely doing that shortly after the Series X event happens on July 23rd. And I will be streaming it, so if you haven't already, and there's a very good chance that you are not following me on there because I only have like 10 followers, but follow me on Twitch, Logan589XP. I mainly use that channel for watching streams, but I also do play games on there sometimes. I've played some Splatoon, I've played some Persona, but mostly I've been using it for, like, you know, whenever there's a stream, like, oh yeah, I'll stream this. Sometimes I have a friend, sometimes I don't. It's kind of dependent, but anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was another long one, and stay tuned for that future discussion and more. So yeah, this is Logan589XP, and I will see you guys next time.